This conference will now be recorded.
So I'll begin by asking if there is any public comment. And if there isn't any, we'll go on to the minutes from last month, from March. And does anybody have anything they want to say about those minutes? And if not, I'll ask for somebody to make a motion to approve those minutes. And Bob, I see your hand, and Christine, second. All in favor? Are there any opposed to that? And are there any abstentions? We'll move on to the treasurer's report. Bob?
Oh, okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. We started off the month of March with a balance of $1,986,279. We had receipts for the month of $147,158. Nothing out of the ordinary, except we did receive the final 10% of the LSSA and LLSA. And we ended up the month of March with $2,133,437. Anyone have any questions or comments?
If there are no questions or comments, then would somebody like to make the motion to approve the treasurer's report? Thank you, Linda. And Margaret, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? And are there any abstentions? Thank you. Director's report, Sarah.
Did we, I'm sorry, I might have been daydreaming. Did we do the warrants too?
The warrants are in the packet.
Okay, just wanted to mention that.
We don't have to do anything.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, so we have state budget updates. We're kind of lucky. The budget was finalized, and due to everyone's excellent advocacy, the state library aid is now at $99.6 million. That is about $3.5 million more than what we were expecting. So that's pretty wonderful. The state construction aid has also been restored to $34 million. That translates to about $1 million for SALS trustees to award or make recommendations for award for state construction applications from our member libraries.
Sarah, what was the amount for sales again?
For construction,
Yeah.
it's like 9,000. It's just short of $1 million. It might be 960.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Which was much better than the 300,000. So it's a much better picture for us. And as soon as the budget figures are finalized by DLD, I will share them with the board, but that's good news for our operating budget for this year. I just wanted to let you know that the side door, the one that you usually use to get back to your car, it's near the parking lot and the restrooms, sometimes fails to close completely due to an airlock issue. And we decided to reach out and get some estimates to finally repair the door so we don't have to deal with its seasonal moodiness. And the estimates so far range from about $3,000 to $3,500. So stay tuned. Our boiler was inspected, and TBS, who's our vendor, will need to come in and make some adjustments before the next heating system. And I believe an appointment has been scheduled to address what the inspection highlighted. The SALS building committee met before our meeting right now, and Christine will be sharing the outcome. We've been negotiating with Arnoff. As you know, Arnoff is our delivery courier and local company doing a fantastic job. I could say they've only had one real burp in this service that they've provided in 3 years. So we're beginning to do a renegotiation with Arnoff, and we're looking at the routes, we're looking at the costs. Arnoff had mentioned something about keeping up with CPI, and which is fine and good, but I wish the state would consider funding libraries based on the CPI, which they don't. So we're going to be in some discussions with them. Just to let you know that the delivery is the most valued and most used service by our members, and the satisfaction is very, very high since we have a new, the courier. They're not new. We finished 3 years of working with them. I guess the good news is that the New York State Department of Corrections has finally hired a librarian for the Washington County Correctional Facility, and we'll start to begin services to that facility very shortly. A notice for the SALS annual meeting has been sent out, and we're working on an agenda, and it will be sent out by the end of this work week. Deborah Caldwell Stone, whom you might have read about. She's been in just about every article talking about book censorship and book banning. She's the director of the ALA Office for Intellectual Freedom, and she'll be our presenter. And she'll share some insights about the book banning and what a trustee's responsibility is regarding these kind of discussions. And she also will have time for questions. So if you'd like to ask the expert, she's there. I'd also like to say that I received an email from a woman who lives in Hamilton County. Her name is Nancy Grosselfinger, and she wanted to know about running for the SALS board. And I shared with her the information about a nomination from the floor. The budget bill had a surprise in it. The surprise was a temporary revision to the open meeting law. Now, the open meeting law requires that we as a public library system and public libraries be open to the public and be transparent. And since there's been an executive order which allowed us to meet virtually, we've adopted, and we've done this pretty well, I think, over the last few years. And now I get to see everybody in little tiny squares, so that's how I vision you, but one day. But anyway, the law, which will go into effect the first week of June, is requiring some changes to the open meeting law. I don't have all of the details. I think I've been sending you information as it becomes available. I've reached out to the SALS attorney. I've reached out to another attorney. And when we have more information, I will share it. But the way I understand it, and Colleen and Pamela, jump in, and maybe Ike, if you have insight that I lack, please jump in as well. The way I understand it is that meetings will have to happen face to face, and you will need to have the quorum, whatever number your quorum is, attending in that face to face meeting. So for SALS, our quorum number is 7. It's 1. So that's our number. So 7 trustees will need to show up face to face for all committee meetings and board meetings. Having said that, it allows for extraordinary circumstances to allow the library to have, well, it's not just library, it's anyone that has to, any organization that has to have a public meeting. But for us, it would mean that we'll need to come up with a motion describing what extraordinary circumstances there are to allow people to attend virtually. And by doing that, you don't have to give the person's address. There's some privacy, but we would just need to say that it's going to be a hybrid meeting and have the link and have the meeting on our website for 5 years. So the SALS board will need to, if you chose to go with a hybrid meeting, to come up with a resolution that I think would need to be passed at the June meeting. Right now, I'm trying to get more clarification because it says that we have to have a public hearing to say that we're going to do that. So I'm not sure. We're not a town. We're not a city. So again, I have questions out to the attorney to give us more clarification on that. So just to paraphrase, we're going to have to start having face-to-face meetings in June. We need to have 7 trustees at each meeting, or whatever the quorum is for the public for the committee meeting. And we'll need to come up with some language on what is an extraordinary situation. That's pretty much all I know. I've shared an email that went into a little more detail with that in Sunday. Pamela, Ike, Colleen, anything to add to that?
I think the only thing is, I believe anybody that logs into the meeting remotely will also have, their vote will count.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if it does count or doesn't count.
I believe it does count, but we have the quorum. So that's where we stand now. We don't have a real board meeting between now and June. So some of this might have to be discussed electronically or have a special meeting. And if we do it before June 6th, we can do it virtually. Linda?
Yes, Sarah, in addition to having to come up with that language of extraordinary circumstances, is it also part of a policy that we adopt saying that we're allowing these hybrid meetings as well? So do we need a policy also?
This is kind of the motion that would be the policy to allow it. But bear in mind, it's only good for 2 years. It sunsets after 2 years.
Okay, and when I've been following your emails about all of this, of course, and I'm hoping that when we get some definite information, you'll share it again with the libraries. I would love to have a template to be able to just plug in my personal library's information and use that as what we adopt in our individual libraries. So if
Right, and I don't want to do it just out of my head. I want to have an attorney's discussion. So I've been in contact with the SALS attorney and some other attorneys. So stay tuned. I wish I had more, but it just came out, I think, on Friday. You're welcome. It's a work in progress. And then the governor has not lifted the state of emergency. And with the COVID on the rise, maybe she won't. I don't know. It's also, she's involved in a primary. So I'm not going to go there. Just say that as long as the executive order isn't lifted, I believe we're still under the executive order. But I could be wrong, but that's what I think. I just wanted to have that caveat. I want to thank Pamela for her work that she's done since I sent out my written report. She repaired all of the broken links for the New York Library Trustees Online, known as Niloto. It's got a lot of really good information that you may want to take a look at. And she's worked real hard We now have duplicate keys for all of our libraries, just for whatever reason we might need to have them. I don't expect ever to use them, but we have them. Colleen and I have been working on the reopening and continuity of operations plan document that will reflect the changes to the COVID protocol since there have been a number of changes. It seems like almost daily. And just to remind you, we do follow Saratoga County, New York State Health, and CDC guidelines. So we're updating the language. For example, one thing in the older policy was that only one person was allowed in the SALS vehicle, but now we're allowing more than one, so we realized it was time to update that document. I'm urging everyone to join Unite Against Book Bans. Please add your name to it. It's a national initiative to empower readers everywhere to stand together in the fight against censorship. Now, it's not telling people what books they can read. It's just saying everybody has the right to decide for themselves what books they want to read. It's not telling people to read books or not read books, but it's saying that everyone has the right to choose for themselves what they want to read and what they want their families to read. Just some statistics. 71% of voters on both sides of the aisle are opposed to efforts to remove books from public libraries, and 67% of voters oppose efforts to remove books from school libraries. Bob, you had just sent me an article, so thank you for that. It is where we are, and we need to start saying that people can choose their own books. Somebody doesn't choose what you read for whatever reason. We wish Mary Hanley. Mary Hanley has been a part of the SALS staff for decades, and she retired last week. And she will be missed by the SALS staff, the JA staff, as well as many of the member library staff. She was the face of JA, and she showed up in all of the libraries on the SALS side and the NVLS side. And we just wish her happiness in her new adventures. And she just mentioned to me that she had some house repairs that she had to face. So that's not the best way to go into retirement, facing house repairs, but at least you might be home for whenever the appointments of the contractors. Do you have any questions for me? I don't think we've had a JA meeting, so Russ, there is no JA report. And now we have Jack, and Jack has agreed to talk to you a little bit about, we're talking about freedom to read, right? Jack, take it away with the summer reading program.
Thank you, Sarah. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen here. So you might not believe it based on the weather, but summer is coming. There we go. So hopefully this is sharing. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about summer reading and this year's theme, An Ocean of Possibilities. So this year's theme is An Ocean of Possibilities. And as our member as a member of SALS, there's a few things that all the libraries get for summer reading. So we do some summer reading training workshops. Each library gets a summer reading poster sponsored by CSLP, the Collaborative Summer Learning Program. And each library gets access to the CSLP summer reading workbook, which is a book that's like when we used to get it physically, it's like 500 pages. It looks like an old phone book. And it's filled with different programming ideas and information on how to conduct a summer reading. One of the things that we always talk about is like, why is summer reading important? So there are a number of reasons summer reading is important. In my mind, the most important is to make learning enjoyable and a lifelong endeavor. So we tend to compartmentalize learning. Like I learned during the school year when I'm at university, and summers are vacation. We take the summer off. But summer reading is sort of planting the seed that learning is a self-paced, lifelong journey and that it's important. We also want to give people a chance to read for enjoyment. We spend a lot of our time in school reading for grades, but it's very important to develop the idea that reading is fun and you can do it for your own enjoyment. So summer reading is a chance to encourage play and reading for enjoyment. And while enjoyment is the goal, there is also research that indicates that the average student falls behind one reading month over the summer. This is what we call the summer slide. If you look at where children get access to books, as in this chart here, they frequently get access to the most books through their school and public libraries. These are their main access points. And with schools closed over the summer, the public library is the main access point for getting books. So this year we teamed up with 9 other library systems to offer 2 virtual programs for summer reading. We did a children's program where we had librarians from across the different 9 systems come together and give examples of programs they are thinking of doing this summer. And it was about a 3-hour long workshop, and we recorded it and shared it with everyone. And so this was our team here. We dressed up and we had a lot of fun working together. And so we had a children's program, and then we also did one for the teens. So we had over 300 people attend the children's workshop and over 250 attend the teen programming workshop. I think it's something we're going to continue based on the survey responses we sent out, or the responses to the survey we sent out. Everyone seemed to think it was really worthwhile, and they came away with a lot of great ideas. And also there were a lot of great costumes that people sort of wore when we showed up. So we also send out a survey at the end of the summer reading, asking people about, how many minutes they're read and this and that. And one of the questions I always ask is, tell us something great about summer reading for you. And these are a couple. I won't read the quotes to you, but you can take a look through them. These are just some of the examples we see every year. So we do have a group system-wide plan for what do they call it, a citizen science-based program this summer. Because of the ocean of possibilities and as a water-based theme, we'd like to do an experiment. Pamela is helping me put together water quality test kits for our member library patrons. These would be sent out to the libraries, and they could be take and make kits that tweens and teens can take home and test their drinking water. And then they can post the results on a website. So the idea is this STEM program will paint a picture of the quality of our community's drinking water throughout the summer. And that's kind of all I have to tell you about the summer reading, unless you have any questions. And you're all welcome to sign up for summer reading. It's not just for kids, it's for all ages.
Thanks, Jeff.
Jordan, excuse me, this is Barbara. I'm on the phone now because my internet went down.
Sure.
In Hamilton County, the Hamilton County Soil and Water District does similar stuff and has all sorts of educational things related to water quality that, at least in Hamilton County, the libraries may want to sort of piggyback with them. And they're a great resource to come into the library as well on that same theme.
It's a good idea. Warren County too?
Yes, definitely. They're very active.
Yeah.
When we put this together, we'll be sure to include that. Some of the member libraries have mentioned organizations in their communities, like Bolton mentioned they have a firm that does water quality testing in their community. So I think the idea is that libraries will also work with organizations in their communities. Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you. Any other comments or ideas? Thank you. We will move on then to committee reports. And why don't we also, as we go through the committee reports, those things that have to be voted on, why don't we do them as that committee comes up? So that would remove 2 items from the unfinished business. Russ, anything from audit and finance? Thanks. Building, Christine. You're muted.
Okay.
Yes.
So the committee met this morning. We had 9 applications, and the grant requests was less than the $50,000. The total grant application request came to $42,910. We had $50,000 to give out. So after reviewing the applications and some discussion, it was the committee's recommendation that we approve all 9 libraries. That said, Jordan's going to have to do them individually because some of us have to recuse ourselves from individual library votes.
Okay, I'm going
to. Bolton, Cambridge, Clifton Park Half Moon, Glens Falls, Granville, Greenwich, Schuylerville, and Waterford. I don't know if anyone really wants to hear all the details, but a lot of architectural review out of these. 5 of the 9 total were libraries looking for architectural review because that is an item that you cannot use state grant money for. So I don't know.
I'm good. The problem is I don't have the sheet with the.
Okay, well, I'll read you each one. So the first library was Boston Spa, and the project is to hire Paul Mays of Butler Rowland New York to develop renovation plans for the library.
And the amount of that was
$5,000.
right. So we're going to vote. And the motion has already been made by the committee. So all in favor of approving that? Any opposed? And any abstentions? Thank you. The next one, Christine?
Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt. Maybe Pamela can get the chart up and you can share it so everybody could see it.
That would be good.
Yeah.
I had it before for the meeting and I don't have it now.
Well, you don't have power to share your screen.
No, I don't have it either, but I should.
That's Jack and Pamela, so she'll have it in a second.
I was able to share it during that meeting on my screen, so I could look at it as we were discussing. No, it's not up yet.
Pamela's on mute too.
One second. Thanks.
While we have this pause, I'd like to let you know that we had hired a young woman named Johanna Hall, and she's helping Jill Ryder with the cataloging. And here's the chart, and Pamela will make it bigger, and I'm going to mute myself.
you can actually make it bigger on your own screen if you want to also. All right, so we just discussed the Ballston Spa. We'll move on to the Bolton Landing. Bolton. The redesign of the circulation desk, add ADA compliant checkout area. That is also grant amount of $5,000. All in favor? Any opposed? And are there any abstentions? I know we will have some abstentions in a moment. The Cambridge Library, hire an architect to draw up plans to expand the library and ensure accessibility to all 3 floors. Also a $5,000 request. All in favor? Are there any opposed? And are there any abstentions? Bob, are you abstaining from that one? Okay, Bob has, okay, thank you. We'll move on to the Clifton Park Half Moon. Create a reading area in the children's library, seating, decor, and rug as part of that. Also a $5,000 request. All in favor? Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? And Russ, you're abstaining. Yes? Thank you. Glens Falls Library. The project is to hire an architect to draw plans to add an office space, a meeting room, and a break room door on the 3rd floor. A request of $4,250. All in favor? Any opposed? And are there any abstentions? And Margaret, you're abstaining from that one. Thank you. Granville Library, a chimney inspection and refurbish the woodworking profiles and shelving supports. And so that's a $4,000 request. All in favor? Are there any opposed? No, nobody opposed? I saw some late hands, so I'm just making sure. Any abstentions on that? Very good. Moving on to Greenwich Library. Add display shelving, move new materials, and add workspace table for patrons. And that is a $5,000 request again. All in favor? Any opposed? Bob, were you opposed, or was that a late in favor? In favor. Okay, and any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Schuylerville, the project is to hire an architect to draw plans to build a pavilion and outdoor locked storage. $5,000 request. All in favor? Any opposed? And are there any abstentions to that one? And the last item is the Waterford Library project to hire an architect to get an estimate for replacing the slate roof of the library. It's a $4,660 request. All in favor? Any opposed? And are there any abstentions? And Christine, you're abstaining, right? Thank you. And that is the complete list. Christine, anything you need to add or no? Okay, let's move on from building to bylaws committee. Russ? Nothing bylaws.
None.
Thank you. Central Library Aid and Services. Margaret?
Nothing to report.
Thank you. County aid coordinators. Anything? No.
Nothing.
Library services.
Nothing.
Thank you. Personnel.
No, nothing.
And finally, trustee nominating. And we do have something here. This is-
Do you want to do it,
Oh.
talk about it, Jordan, or do you want me to talk about it?
I don't have the descriptions of the two people. Well, three if we had. So yes, would you, if you have the information?
Okay, hang on a second.
Sure.
Pamela, could you bring up the notice?
Sarah, what do you want me to pull up?
The notice of the meeting that was sent out. We send out a month before the annual meeting a notice of the annual meeting. Everybody should have received it. And Elaine Cowan served as the chair of the nomination committee. And there are two vacancies. One in Washington County because Bob's term expires at the end of May, and one in Hamilton County because Nancy's first term expired and she's able to run for a second term. So in the annual notice of annual business meeting, the slate is shared with all of the member library trustees and the SALS trustees. And Laura Goodman is running for the first 5-year term to expire in May of 2027, and she represents Washington County. And Nancy has graciously agreed to run for a second 5-year term, and we know Nancy. And you can read her little bio, their bios. I received an email today from a person who lives in Hamilton County. Her name is Nancy Grosselfinger, and she has expressed interest in running for a seat from Hamilton County. And I sent her all of the information regarding how she can run as somebody from the floor. Nancy, I believe, is a resident of Racket Lake. And I believe she's addressed the SALS board a few years ago to talk about an IMLS grant. So that's where we stand. Any questions?
Then the motion has to be made to approve the nominations. Is that right? I'm
Can't hear
sorry,
you,
Sarah.
Sarah.
I believe so.
Can be a
Yes.
committee motion.
Yes. So we can move on to the vote, right? The committee is putting forth those nominees. So would somebody, so then all in favor of, those will be presented at the meeting in May, is that right? Yes. So
Yes, they'll be
yes,
with a nomination from the floor.
right. So all in favor of the nominations as presented? Any opposed? And are there any abstentions? Thank you. On to unfinished business. At this point, we do have an officer nominating committee. The three people on that committee are Russ, Barbara, and Sue. Is that right? Yes, and we will be looking for somebody to step forward to run for an officer's position. I have served my term, and so there will be a shuffling. And if you're interested, please make it known to the nominating committee. Are there any questions about this or any comments? Okay.
We could just say that the officers of the SALS board are president, vice president, and
Oh,
secretary.
sorry. Yes.
And Janet has agreed to serve a second term as secretary.
And yes. And
Jordan, I just want to say to all the people who've served, you've done so graciously and gracefully.
oh, thank you, Bob. Good. Thank you. And
we'll probably say it publicly in May, but Bob, thank you for your service.
Yes.
And for your often keen insight into some of the things. It's been a great pleasure serving with you.
Thanks, Russ.
I'll second that. Thank you. Thank you all. And just a reminder about the annual SALS board, the meeting in May. And again, that's May 16th at 7 p.m. Finally, new business. I see we have the contract renewal with Arnoff. And you've already presented some of the information about that, Sarah?
It's a work in progress. I
Right.
don't think we can, I don't think we're at the place to approve the contract yet.
Right, right. And we've already discussed the construction grants, haven't we? We're done with that. Am I confusing two issues here? No, that's done.
It's done. We're efficient.
Okay. Is there anything else? There was something I was supposed to mention, Sarah, and I can't remember if I have now. You had mentioned to me at the last meeting. Have I covered that? Whatever it was supposed to be? I think it was the officer nominating committee, so I assume that is done. And fine, good. Thank you. We've discovered that the meeting doesn't have to be concluded by a vote. So yes, Jack?
Oh, I just wanted to mention that so we have been using GoToMeeting, but it's been having some hiccups recently. So the annual meeting is going to be on Zoom. So if you need help, if you haven't used Zoom before, or you need to install it on your computer, just reach out to me and let me know, and I'd be happy to help you.
Thanks, Jack. Any other comments or observations or things we have overlooked? Anybody want to bring up before we close this meeting? Then I'm going to close the meeting. Thank you all. See you in May, and stay healthy.